when you hear of a carjacking, it's not glamorous, it's not expensive cars. This was a 62 registration Fiat Punto, a first car, and they were just wrong place, wrong time, and spotted by two young men in a stolen car who were running out of petrol and decided they needed another vehicle. One of the lads decided to run, and he was followed by a young man with a hammer, which left Chris and the driver of the car with a young man with a knife. This young chap took a dislike to Chris, and we'll never know why, and ended up stabbing Chris 4 times. So Chris was stabbed in the heart, in the liver, and in the arm and the back as he turned away from the assailant. An ambulance was passing at the bottom of the road, so they were there straight away, scooped Chris up and took him to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, which again was only 2 or 3 minutes away. So Chris was very lucky. Chris was in intensive care for over 2 weeks. He was in a coma for 2 weeks. Due to the massive blood loss, he had kidney failure. He was on dialysis. Getting him ready to go for a scan or anything was a huge undertaking. And we had to watch this for over 2 weeks. We were taken aside by the neurosurgeon, and he told us that he couldn't understand why Chris wouldn't wake up from his coma, and he didn't know what we would get back. And that was hard. But 2 weeks later, Chris decided it was time, and I'm convinced he decided when was the right time, and he did regain consciousness. Chris wanted to have the dog come into the ward. We couldn't manage that, but eventually, when we could get Chris into a recumbent chair, it wasn't even a wheelchair, we stole him from the ward and brought the dog into the reception downstairs. One of Chris's wishes was that he would get to a point where he could walk the dog again. Unfortunately, that never happened. He was never able to do that again. Chris used to swim. Chris can't swim now. Chris can't float. Chris cycled. He can cycle now, but it's a trike, a recumbent trike that he sits in rather than sits on. Balance, repetition, speech, everything is a challenge that we work on all the time. And the thing that gets me is after the incident, the immediate aftermath, the lad who stabbed Chris he rang friends and was whisked away. The other chap, they got in the car and drove away, parked the car up. This was their stolen car, and called a taxi and could pay a taxi driver. And I just think, if you could pay the taxi driver, you could have bought a few litres of fuel in the car that was running out. This was all futile. It was all unnecessary. But that lad had a knife in his hand. He was angry and he used it. So don't have that knife in your hand.